Jesus and downward mobility. That's what I want to explore today. We read this in Philippians 2. Do nothing out of selfish ambition or conceit, but in humility consider others as more important than yourselves. Everyone should look not to his own interests, but rather to the interests of others. Adopt the same attitude as that of Christ Jesus, who existing in the form of God, did not consider equality with God as something to be exploited. Instead, he emptied himself by assuming the form of a servant, taking on the likeness of humanity. This is part of the hymn of Christ, this great song that the early church would have sung about Jesus. And we can kind of pull a few things from this. The first is that the posture of Jesus was really important. Jesus was somebody who had a posture of downward mobility. He wasn't interested in having being a celebrity. He wasn't interested in being bigger than or more important than. He wasn't interested in status or achievement. He certainly was not an influencer. He held a posture of meekness and humility. He didn't think about himself as more important than others. The second thing we can kind of pull from this, and this one I really love, is about pace. And pace tells us that Jesus wasn't obsessed with productivity. He wasn't somebody who was living life in the fast lane, who was somebody who was goal-driven or achievement-focused. He was somebody who lived a slow and methodical pace. We read, Alistair Stern says this, that Jesus walked at roughly 3 miles per hour, just like the average human being. This was quite literally God's speed on earth. Spiritual formation takes place at God's speed, not in self-improvement blitzes. The thing about that and the idea that we live in a culture obsessed with speed. Fast cars, fast food. Speed would be the greatest good in our world. But Jesus offers us a picture that is counter-cultural to that. How, as we think about our own lives, what pace do you travel at? Do you live in? I've been thinking about my own experience in downtown Windsor and how there were often times where I would walk or skateboard or bike places, and how much different, I would notice different things when traveling at a slower pace than I would in a car where everything was just sort of whizzing by. If I saw somebody I recognized when I was in a car, all I could do was honk. But when I'm on a skateboard or a bike or walking, I can stop and be present with those people. Jesus would have embodied this kind of pace, this deliberate, slow, present to people kind of pace. And it makes me wonder, and maybe it's a question worth asking, what is the pace that you live at? Do you live as somebody who is obsessed with productivity, punching everything into your calendar, maximizing your time? Is that the best kingdom kind of pace to live at? How can we be present to God if we are ever in a rush? How can we be present to each other if the same applies? Finally, the third thing would be presence. Jesus wasn't preoccupied with climbing the ladder of success or upward mobility. He wasn't concerned with making it to the top. Instead, he was often found with the last and the least and the poor and the hungry, the thirsty, among the peacemakers, among the humble and the meek. He spent more time in just humble conversation with people in the Galilean countryside than he did with the religious elite in Jerusalem and around the temple. He was present to people who could offer him nothing. And I wonder, how much time do we spend present to people who can offer us something, who help us achieve our goals, or who help us accomplish what we want to accomplish? Henry Nouwen offers us these words in closing. The society in which we live suggests in countless ways that the way to go is up. Making it to the top, entering the limelight, breaking the record. That's what draws attention, gets us on the front page of the newspaper, and offers us the rewards of money and fame. The way of Jesus is radically different. It is the way not of upward mobility, but of downward mobility. It's going to the bottom, staying behind the sets, and choosing the last place. Why is the way of Jesus worth choosing? Because it is the way to the kingdom, the way Jesus took, and the way that brings everlasting life.